at street corners are Nigerians. There must be an elaborate security plan on how to contain them in case of an outbreak of war. Alternatively, the Nigerian Senate can de-escalate the situation by rejecting the deployment of troops to Niger to oust the
They've done that.
coups. They will lower the reputational risk for the ECOWAS chairman. All right, and that is the story as regards Niger invasion from the Guardian newspaper. More details on page 6. Moving on now, we also have subsidy. How repair of refinery may ease economic pains. Okay, this isn't new, but what we have as riders to this is freight cost curbs 29.2 billion naira monthly. Spikes pump price. Price fluctuations will persist until importation ceases, says expert. $15 billion monthly petrol import, a toll on economy. I think we. I don't think we. I don't think we've overflogged. I don't think we'll be overflogging it if we mention the fact that refineries are important. Of what? What do you think?
If you look at the three riders, Sandra, it tells you
Cost
why
implications.
these go. Yeah, the cost implications. I like the figures, and like I said the last time, I think the editors of the Guardian is doing a fantastic job bringing up figures and breaking down the issues. Making it easy for people to understand why these issues have to continue to come up. We can't overflog the issue, Sandra, because again, as we continue to talk about it, maybe the government will wake up and make fixing of our refineries a top priority. The supporters of this government have always said, during the last administration, anytime you talk about our own refineries, don't worry, Dangote is coming up. As we speak, we are not even sure of a timeline for Dangote refinery, but we can be sure of our own if the government makes it a priority. And that's why there are people who are questioning why this government has not made it a priority in their statements, in the body language, in their policies. We are not seeing that idea of fixing our refineries becoming a priority of this government. And it has to be a priority. Advantages are there for us to see. You don't need to be an economic expert to understand that, having a refinery as an oil-producing nation is the best. There's going to be an economic rebound, an immediate economic rebound, Sandra. Whether we like it or not, the amount we are using to bring in refined fuel now is a huge burden on our forex market. If we of these things, we take forex away from it. We refine locally, we distribute locally, we sell locally, we can even domesticate it in our naira. And like we've always said, the four refineries have a total of 445,000 barrels per day. The founding fathers, when these refineries were built, it was to take care of days like this, when international prices will continue to affect the price of PMS and crude. You have your own refineries, you have the product here, you have the crude here, you can domesticate it to your advantage. It's not rocket science. Even rocket science, people, Sandra, people study it and understand it. How much more the issue of crude and refining it into petrol? Are the locals in the Niger Delta are not even refining fuel? Whether with illegal or illegal refineries, are they not doing it? So why has it become extremely difficult for Nigeria to fix its own refineries when a private individual can build one in 6 years? It's unfortunate. So again, the figures are there, the details are there, the report has said it all. The advantages are, and that is why I was completely annoyed. I continue to repeat, when Mele Kyari was trying to downplay the importance of having local refineries, that it doesn't really matter. Who says it doesn't really matter? Today, Saudi Arabia has football clubs spending money anyhow, throwing money at footballers all over the world. Whether we like it or not, the economic prosperity of Saudi Arabia is still influently on the fact that they are oil-producing nation. So why is our own different, Sandra? Why is our own different? Today, Aramco is the most viable company in the world. And there's nothing. What are they doing, Sandra? What is Aramco doing? Are they selling for? It is the same crude. So what is the model that has been adopted in Saudi Arabia that we cannot adopt in Nigeria? Are the people of Saudi Arabia, are they spirits and ghosts? Are they not human beings? But the reality is that the commitment to do the right thing is what is lacking here. At the level of leadership, most importantly.
All right, thank you very much, Sahid Fuad. Let's move on now, because from that same story I have here, just a breakdown for the average Nigerian out there who's wondering why this conversation, on refinery every time. The truth of the matter is that the current pump price in Nigeria is arrived at after adding the actual cost of PMS, freight cost, insurance, local distribution, margins by marketers, charges by Nigerian Port Authority, charges by NMDPRA, charges by Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agent, that's the MASA, while the actual cost of the product as of July 14 stood at 529 per litre. Freight, insurance, MPA, NMDPRA, NIMASA charges would have been avoided if the product was refined locally. That is just the crux of this particular conversation as regards refining or no refining. It's been a while we heard from Mile Kyari, the GCEO of NNPCL, as ever since he said that, local production won't change anything. I would love to hear from him once again as regards this particular conversation. More details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here unease over 14 years blackout power cut in Ondo South. That is on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. So just very quickly, we also have here a very lengthy story actually. The earth was formless and void, and darkness ruled upon the surface of the deep is a biblical account of prehistoric time that is just as apt for parts of Ondo State in the 21st century Nigeria. So what we have is that though the National Electric Power Authority, NEPA, was decentralized into PHCN and then further down to private-owned distribution companies, the word is still only the lexicon that is fully understood by the literate class and laymen in the country. However, this cannot be said for residents of Ondo State residing in the Southern Senatorial District who had been without power from the national grid for over 14 years. Communities in 4 council areas of the district, Okitipupa, Ilaje, Irele, and Eseodo, have been without electricity for between 10 to 15 years over alleged indebtedness to Benin Electricity Distribution Company. So they are owing, and that's why they've not highlighted. That's interesting. All right. So looking at that particular one, with this situation considered pathetic, inhabitants of the community in the council areas have no doubt been reconfigured to see electricity from the national grid as a luxury and no longer a necessity. That's interesting. So following this development, generators have been competing for spaces in various households and have no other option other than to acclimatize to the attendant effects of noise pollution, among other health hazards. Well, that's quite unfortunate. I don't know what and that's Ondo State, where there are a lot of things happening there as regards leadership. But then, 15 years without light, FUHAD, or without electricity, put it that way, due to indebtedness. So they're owing.
That can't be the only reason. You see, again, whatever arrangement we have, Sandra, in terms of generation, transmission, and distribution, we need to completely unbundle it, have a different structure that can work. If you understand what I'm saying, we have to have something completely different. Because again, if you ask me, what's the level of investment, for example, for this community, from the distribution company handling this community? Because the reality is that a lot of people don't even pay, because you come with bogus bills without providing power. And so then we will not pay. We can't be paying for darkness. We need to ask the Benin Electricity, were they really even supplying these communities with power to make them want to pay?
Well, according to...
You understand what I'm saying?
According to BEDIS, that's Benin Disco.
Electricity.
Yes, the action was taken for the communities to pay up an outstanding debt. FUHAD, the outstanding debt is 2 billion naira.
The question I'm saying is that did they supply them enough power
for
the demand for 2 billion naira? Because we have situations where people have been paying for darkness. So you may have a situation where the community is saying that no, we can't pay because we haven't been having light. You know, so that should be the issue. Where they actually, where this community supply with power in the first place to start with, or is it the same? Is it not the same old story of people paying for what they did not use? Because a lot of times you have these distribution companies doing practically nothing to ensuring that power is supplied. You remember there's even this issue of that. Look, we have generated enough. We can transmit enough, but the distribution companies will tell you that look, their facilities cannot distribute enough, so they tell the transmission companies to reduce what they are giving to them. So the reality is these communities, but I also think that this is the time to ask questions from their governor. What is happening? It's about leadership too. Like you just also rightly pointed out, there's a lot of issues with governance in Ondo State as we speak. But for it to have existed for the last 10 years,
15.
14 years. So it's not just even this administration, it's been past administrations too, and nobody has done anything about it. It's unfortunate.
Very actually. And looking further at this, we have here that despite the partial repairs of damages in Odiaye, Igbokoda, and some streets in Okitipupa, we still do not have electricity because they, that is Benin Disco, insist that the only working 30 MV transformer in Ondo town can no longer power the overall communities in Ondo South anymore. 30 MV.
Is it not their job to now buy the one that can work, the distribution company? Those are the investments we are talking about. So if there's one transformer that cannot power that community, as a distribution company, that is their job to now buy the one that can power, because that's supposed to be their role and responsibility and investment in that sector. So they are expecting the community to buy the transformer as usual.
Wow.
The way others have been buying.
And I can't begin to imagine an entire community depending heavily on generator-powered, businesses. I wonder how the businesses there are thriving. But then more details of that on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. And that's all from the Guardian. Let's move on now. You're still listening to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. I'm moving on now to the Punch. And the major headline there, foreign airlines repatriate over $4 billion in 15 months. We have riders there that says Lagos to London fares 49% higher than Accra to London, 162% higher than Cotonou to London. Nigeria Air project stalls, airfares skyrocket over foreign exchange shortage. That's interesting, FUHAD. Cotonou is just
interesting
beside us here, and airfare from there to London is 162% higher than what you would pay in Lagos.
I've been speaking to industry experts about this particular issue, why the airfares from Cotonou to London, for example, is far less than 50% of what it would take for you to fly from Lagos to London. The same thing with Accra. And what they are saying is that, look, our forex policy is the reason why this is happening. There's a lot of that, whether we like it or not, floating the dollars meant that there are people who are going to be doing all manner of things. There's a lot of scarcity. It has become a battle for the biggest, forex earner. So again, that's why the government needs to look at some of these policies, and we need to really stabilize our forex market, because whether we like it or not, everything will be calculated in foreign currency. But it's a bit outstanding. Nobody has also been able to give a cogent reason as to why that is happening. Why FX are so high in the country, other than the fact that, look, it's about our dollars and the fact that the naira is doing poorly, extremely poorly against against the naira, against the dollar. Sorry, but ultimately, I think these are things that we need to look at. I think traveling out of the country has become a big luxury now. It's not for everybody. If you understand what I'm saying, it's a very, very big luxury, because you have to spend. So it's almost like ×3 of what you ordinarily would have to spend about a year ago. A return ticket now, if you look at what it costs to buy a return ticket from Lagos to London, for example, it's almost like ×3 of what would have cost you if you were to do that a year ago. And it's really, really troubling for people who want to make this journey.
I think we're also not looking at the fact that airlines are still struggling to repatriate their funds. I think that's another major issue, because I have here that the exchange rate has not necessarily made the figure high, but the airfare is equally high, because if foreign airlines can get forex at the official exchange rates, the airfare would not be as high as it is today. So
that's what we're saying, that since we floated the naira, they will have to calculate as to the currency rate of the dollar, which is at the parallel market, the open market. So automatically it's going to go up. So again, these are the policies we need to look at. Are we going to sustain policy or begin to make exemptions? If you understand what I'm saying, can we make exemptions with air travel, for example, with the manufacturing sector, for example, instead of having everything uniform as it is? But again, I think the government needs to understand that they would have to intervene eventually. Whether we're still going to have two markets, I don't know. Whether the government would have to change policy, I'm not completely sure. But they would have to intervene eventually.
All right.
important that they have to
But
intervene.
do you think at any point in time that our amazing, wonderful, beautiful Nigeria Air can come into the situation and rescue the situation?
Which Nigeria, how many aircraft? I've been hearing reports that it's going to start sometime this August. I think this August. We are hearing that they are going to start with about 8 aircraft or something. But I have my doubts about Nigeria Air because there are still unanswered questions about Nigeria Air, and they won't be their capacity really. How many aircraft are they going to deploy? The operational model is not completely clear. There are still questions hanging around that particular deal. It's almost like it's Ethiopia Air that we are trying to brand Nigeria Air. The Ethiopia airline is what we're trying to rebrand as Nigeria. So I think we should just leave that on the sidelines. If Nigeria starts to fly, then we can start to talk about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Fuad. Now, moving on, still on the front page of The Guardian, more details of that story on page 2. We have here very quickly, private schools will suspend bus services and raise their fees, and that's according to National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, saying that the parents should have to find a way to get their wards to school from the new session coming in by September. All right, due to, of course, that is due to the fuel issue, the cost of fuel. Yeah, the cost of fueling the buses, and also the fact that parents should also look forward to an increase in school fees. All right, that's for
automatically
private
that will
schools.
happen.
Exactly. More details.
As a parent,
I'm with you.
as a parent, we're already having our fears. Most likely, school fees for buses. School buses would go up, if not triple. What that will happen. We are expecting that in September, a lot of private schools will increase their school fees and of course, transportation fees too for students who use buses. So it's going to happen. One of the implications of this rising cost of fuel. So as a parent, we're already expecting it. We know the bill is going to go up and it's going to come. No doubt about that.
All right. Thank you very much. More details of that on page 28 of the Punch. Moving on, we also have here elevator tragedy. Lagos sacks facility managers, suspend agency GM. And that is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. So just very quickly as well, let's quickly look through that particular story. The Lagos State government has released the findings of the panel set up to investigate the causes of the elevator accident, which resulted in the death of Dr. Ware Diaso, a medical doctor at the General Hospital, Odon, Lagos Island. The permanent secretary, Odon. I've been saying Odon. Thank you very much, Fad. Odon. All right. The permanent secretary, Ministry of Information and Strategy, stated some initial actions based on the panel's findings include the sacking and blacklisting of the elevator facility managers, the suspension of the general manager of the Lagos State Infrastructure and Asset Management Agency, among others. However, Mr. Olumide Shogunle also went further to debunk reports that the elevator had been developing faults since 2020. He stressed that the crashed elevator was actually newly installed in 2021. All right, and so they're going to be carrying out initial inspection, remove the elevator for further mechanical examination to determine why the safety features that should have prevented this kind of accident did not work. And then their findings from that will determine if they have a case with the elevator installer. And that is the update as regards the very, very, very unfortunate and avoidable accident that happened at General Hospital, Odon, in Lagos Island.
Well, Odon. Well, very avoidable. And, again, I think we should just look at the lessons to take away from this. Very unfortunate for the young doctor with her future, with a very bright future ahead of her, having to die in that avoidable accident. But I think for the Lagos State government, that's to be out of the lessons learned from this. It's just like the issue of the building collapse too. The GM of the agent.
You have 1 minute remaining in your...
Oh, apologies for that. That's not from our side, definitely. But that's the update as regards page 10 of the Punch newspaper. And by tomorrow on the People's Right, we'll be discussing further as regards occupational hazards, in the workplace or, while on the job or whatnot. We'll be having conversations as regards that and what to look out for, how you can seek redress if you find yourself in situations where, you have been working in a place and something happens and, you can get some sort of justice or your rights as regards working in an
the parents of these doctors can take it up legally against the Lagos State government. Yeah, I'm sure you know that.
Yes. So, based on
they
findings,
decide to do
yes,
that.
of course. So we'll have
Based on a whole lot of things.
yes, or findings on a whole lot of things, of course. We'll have further conversations as regards that by 11 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday. So please stay tuned. Let's move on now. We also have here influx of smuggled textiles killed 150 local companies, says TEA. And that is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. Very quickly, manufacturers under the aegis of the Nigerian Textile Employers Association have said that smuggling of textile products through Nigeria's land borders has led to the collapse of over 150 textile companies in the last 40 years. FUHAD, I'm sure you have some level of, expertise in this particular field. So I'll leave it to you.
You see, the issue is this, Sandra. When imported goods become more cheaper than locally manufactured, what are we not supposed to begin to question ourselves? You understand what I'm saying? When the one that you take all the way from abroad, you smuggle in, get into the market, and it comes more quality, becomes more cheaper than the ones they are producing locally. Are we not supposed to question ourselves? The textile girls in Nigeria should ask themselves if smuggling is the only reason why they are out of business. It can never be because clothes are being smuggled into the country.
Okay.
It can never. I think they need to tell themselves the home truth. What about the cost of production, really? Has it helped them in any way? What about security in the country? What about the movement of their goods too? You understand what I'm saying? Then what about technical know-how to produce quality textile materials? If you understand what I'm saying. So instead of just pointing at one singular thing, there is the cost of smuggling of textile materials that their business have collapsed. No, that is basically telling half truth. The reality is that there are a lot of things stacked against them as local manufacturers of textile in Nigeria that they need to address. What about access to forex for importation of materials? How readily available are cotton materials for their products in Nigeria? You understand? So a lot of things would have accounted for them going out of business, not because of smuggling. It's just like rice farmers in Nigeria now coming to say that because foreign rice is being smuggled into Nigeria, that's why they are out of business. Have you not seen that the standard of our local rice is not even as good as the one that are imported into the country? What about the issue of insecurity? But a lot of things account for the reasons why industries are folding up in Nigeria. It can never be smuggling alone. I'm not saying it does not affect, but I'm asking the question, how is it that the ones that are imported, smuggled in, becomes cheaper and comes with better quality? Those are the issues to address.
Thank you very much, Fuad, because, what I have also here that the government, one way or the other, introduced interventions to revive that sector.
And it did not help.
50 billion naira special mechanism fund by CBN was supposed to revive the textiles industry. But
and it didn't revive it.
It's okay.
Anchor borrow was 500 billion to farmers. Did they revive anything? We will tell ourselves the truth about some of these things.
They were able to,
Buy what?
sponsor someone's dream. I just leave that.
People, rice farmers sponsor someone's presidential ambition, but we're not able to pay back the loan. Look at the irony.
Well, more details of that on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. And that is all from the Punch. Let's move on now to the Nation newspaper. You are still on to trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. We're just 10 minutes away from the kickoff where the Super Falcons will be facing off the Lionesses. Don't worry, stay tuned to the
We are praying for them.
yes, we're praying for them. We're also watching. We'll give you live updates as it holds.
You want me to make a prediction?
I'll give you 5 naira if you win. Oh yeah, make your make your prediction.
No, well, we are beating them 2-1. Don't worry, 2-1. 2 goals to Nigeria, 1 to England. We're beating them.
Well, the whole world has heard you, FUHAD. So I will hold you. We'll hold you if there's any breakfast served. But no.
Octopus FUHAD has predicted this 1-2-1.
That's deep. Okay, let's move on now to the Punch newspaper. Thank you very much, FUHAD. The major headline on the front page of the Punch: federal government states open talks on minimum wage review. And the writer says no plan for 100% pay rise. But the conversation is open, but it's not going to be 100%. As against the 200,000 that the labor unions are.
Wait. Sandra, what's the current minimum wage?
30,000.
So 100% pay rise would be what?
60,000.
60,000 there. You can see how far it is from the 200,000 demand of labor. So if the government is already saying they can't even do 100%, so are they saying they are raising the minimum wage from 30 to maybe 40,000 naira?
To what?
That's
50?
the question. Well, you are saying 50.
I'm asking.
You might just hear that even the 30,000 minimum wage, that there are some states that are not paying it as you speak.
Not that they are not.
So you can understand it.
Not that they are not paying it; they can't pay it. So.
They can't pay. Who says they can't pay? It's about priorities, Osanja. Don't tell me they can't pay. When you use your state to borrow a manner of money, run white elephant projects. In between all of that, so much corruption is going on. You will not be able to pay, not because you can't pay. It's just because you have not made paying your priority. I can tell you that every state in Nigeria can pay that 30,000 minimum wage if they make paying it a priority. If they are prudent about the spending of the people, if they embark on projects that are meaningful, not white elephant projects, and they stop using that state to borrow, and also think about internally generating the internal revenue internally, they can pay. Who says they can't pay 30,000 minimum wage? But I am sure this negotiation of minimum wage with labor will cause a lot of katakata. I know the resolution will not come that easy.
Well, it is important to note that, yes, conversations are ongoing as regards the minimum wage review. The minimum wage review committee will come to conclusions once negotiations between the federal and state governments evolve, because, the federal has to agree with the state, because the state at the end of the day will be the one to make the payments. So whether or not we'll see 100% pay rise, but then the position of the government so far, there are strong indications that is not in favor of a 100% pay rise. But then we'll see.
Who is even demanding 100%? Labor is demanding 200,000 naira minimum wage. They are not even using percentage to calculate.
Well,
so 100% is 60,000 naira. I'm sure that is not demand of labor.
In support or in addendum to what FUHAD had already said earlier on, the truth is there are some states that are yet to even implement the minimum wage, while some others, such as Imo State, recently increased their minimum wage to 40,000%. But then the truth is, before we got to 30,000, FUHAD, before former President Muhammadu Buhari increased it to 30,000 in 2019, it was 18,000 naira. That's way above. That's about 100% or so increase. Well, not up to 100%, but then about 97 or so percent. So I mean, even though the government tries to do 100% pay rise, it won't be much. It shouldn't be much of a big deal. But then, can these governors pay it? That's another question that we should also.
They can, but they will not.
Okay. Well, let's quickly move on now. Not so much time. We also have here on the front page of the Nation newspaper, Navy, crude on arrested vessel not stolen. This conversation is still on. For what I know, you remember the supposed or alleged vessel that was found, and that there was a Navy boat escorting it or some sort.
Escorting it, yeah.
So, according to what we have heard now, the Nigerian Navy has said the laboratory analysis of the oil product confirmed that the ship was laden with high power fuel oil, as indicated, and all. But they said, if you look through the papers, that it's not stolen.
So who owns it? Where is it coming from? Where was it loaded from? And it's taking days. Why is it taking days to have all of these revelations and closure on the case? Why is it taking this number of days? And the the private security company that arrested this vessel is still claiming that it was stolen. And they were shocked that there was a navy boat escorting it.
It was a naval boat.
If it was not stolen, the question is that where was it loaded from? Who owns it? Of the vessel?
Well, it's not in the report. That's the crux here now. Who owns it? If it's not stolen, okay, so
and on a normal day, Sandra, if there's nothing fishy about this issue, within 24 hours, all of this information should have been supplied. Oh, it was loaded from here. The vessel is so it belongs to this company. This is the liter of crude that was in it. All of those should have been unraveled within 24 hours. It's taking almost like 4 days now. And there's a back and forth between the company, the security company, between the Navy. We don't even know the owners of the vessel as we speak. It goes to show that when it comes to crude oil theft, Sandra, there are things that are bigger than what we know about it.
All right then.
Because again, who owns the vessel? Where is it coming from? Where was it loaded from? And why was the Navy escorting it? Is it their job to escort crude oil vessels? I'm just asking a question as an innocent journalist.
It's on the water, so maybe they're just trying to ensure.
I know
there's no spill or something.
That's their job, to escort vessels with crude out of the country. Are they paid to do that?
Let's move on now to the final paper that we have this morning. More details on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. The major headline on Vanguard newspaper: manufacturers borrow 1.8 trillion naira to survive in first half, not even just first quarter, the first half of 2023, which is January to June. And we have riders that says finance cost rises 411%. Analysts recommend public offers and CPs, and the names of the top 5 borrowers are written boldly on the front page of the Guardian news of Vanguard. Vanguard newspaper. See inside for more.
You can see why Glasgow is leaving the country, Sandra. You can see why they have to leave. Manufacturers, I just hope that the government would have to quickly intervene. And when we say intervention, we are not talking about scratching the surface or this knee-jerk approach. It is important to engage the manufacturers, look at what is raising their costs to a point where they can't even bear it again, and look at how to resolve those issues. Power, access to forex. I told you the last time, Sandra, it's not about even capital now for manufacturers or funds to run their business. It's about creating that environment, that viable, conducive environment for business to thrive. And if in talking about conducive environment for business to thrive, a lot of things come into it. And the government needs to address those things. Not the idea of throwing money in and saying, you have made monies available, or you are providing 1 billion for 75 companies. I can tell you that all those 75 companies that will get 1 billion naira each, if this environment is where they are still going to operate from, those businesses in 1 year may collapse.
Still struggle. All right, finally, very quickly now, we do have a few seconds left, but just to quickly take this story. Obaseki Shaibu feud, anxiety suspense as Edo Assembly sits today. So the Edo polity is astir following the raging feud between the governor of the state and his deputy, the governor being Godwin Obaseki and his deputy being Philip Shaibu. Both camps were wrapped in anxiety, suspense and apprehension ahead of today's resumption of sitting of the State House of Assembly. As it is now, Shaibu is battling perceived impeachment moves against him. The apprehension is over whether or not the lawmakers will embark on the purported impeachment plot of the deputy governor, despite the Abuja division of the Federal High Court's directive of maintaining status quo antebellum, pending the determination of the suit filed by Shaibu to stop the alleged plot to remove him. So the State House sits today. Yes, very quickly.
This is not new, Sandra.
All right.
If they decide to go ahead and impeach him against the verdict of the court, they will impeach him, but the court will reinstate him again. We've seen that several in different parts of the country, different states in the country. The interesting thing is just that, look, friends have become enemies now, and it's about personal interest. There are reports that Shuaibu is already, meeting with perceived enemies of the governor, and he's worried. There are also reports that Shuaibu is also eyeing that position. He wants to contest to become governor. I don't know why in Nigeria a lot of governors don't always want to support their deputies
Thank you
to
for
become governor. That's always the problem. But again, they will sort themselves out. It's just about politics, really.
Well, it is 8:30, and of course, our girls have kicked off on the field. The Super Falcons are facing the Lionesses of England. So don't worry, we'll give you updates, but stay tuned to Milan 98.3 FM. We will come back for Milan Focus by 8:40, so we can discuss other stories currently trending in the country at this time. My name still remains OMOBOLA Sandra. Thank you very much, FUHAD, SAHEED, for standing by. And this is Milan 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
Your whole world comes crashing down. You look up. Assemble the team.
It's showtime.
The brains. Waking up.
What'd you have for breakfast?
We are the sound of Lagos, and this is Mainland 98.3 FM.
You didn't see that coming, did you?
One of us must have a last say. Words like dagger, we try to hurt each other. There's no other way until one's around.